Hello and welcome to the ECAPS Watch podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Houlihan, CEO at Workflow Services. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Congressman Marc Veasey, a representative from Texas's 33rd Congressional District, a diverse area in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. He was first elected to Congress in 2012. Representative Veasey sits on key committees, including the Energy and Commerce Committee, and has a strong track record on healthcare access. He's co-sponsored all three ECAPS bills in the House, going back to the original bill, which recent podcast guest Congressman Ron Kind originally introduced back in 2023. Representative Veasey, thank you so much for joining me. Can you tell me a little about your history with the ECAPS legislation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, that's what we do. Like we do healthcare and we do pharmaceuticals. We have a very broad committee, and I think sometimes people are surprised when they hear that a committee called Energy and Commerce handles healthcare, but we do. And for me, it's important because the district that I represent is very, low income. So we have a lot of people that are dealing with healthcare related issues, pharmaceutical drugs related issues as it relates to just access and care and affordability. And so it's really important to me. And so I think that it's great that someone like Ron Kind, who used to be a member of Congress that served on the Ways and Means Committee, started this bill off, because really a lot of people don't realize it, but pretty much everything that goes through the House of Representatives goes through Ways and Means, and then ultimately, Energy and Commerce. And so it's a hugely important committee to work on issues like this.
Yeah, so as a reminder for our audience, ECAPS is all about expanding access to point-of-care testing for respiratory conditions to folks who are covered by Medicare. And one of the things that we're so passionate about is just the ability of pharmacies to deliver these services has been proven out time and again for a bunch of different things. Obviously, I think most vaccines now are delivered in the pharmacy setting. And so it's just a great opportunity to get care at this low friction place that's in the community and open late and easy to get into, all those sorts of things. But I think it's a theme of just healthcare access. Can you tell me, I know you're a huge advocate for healthcare access, is there a story in your life or a story from your constituents that really lit the fire of your passion to advocate for access to different kinds of healthcare?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The biggest thing that I can think of is just the relationship that people have with their pharmacists, because it's a lot different. When I was growing up, there was still a lot of independent pharmacists in the Black community in Fort Worth. And the type of relationship that people had with those pharmacists, the trust that they had with those pharmacists was huge. And for a lot of independent pharmacists still today, there's one here in my neighborhood. There are other ones in the district that I represent. I've had relatives that have used these pharmacists. The relationship that they have, it is huge. The independent pharmacist that lives around the corner from my house, his parents are two of my, most amazing constituents. I've known them for decades now. One of his mom went to high school with one of my aunts. So, I mean, it's like, you have that sort of longevity with your pharmacist. And I think that makes people very comfortable. And I think that it makes them actually get better care, because even though there are limitations of what pharmacists can do, for them to be able to have an expansion of what they can treat people with, I think gives the patient a little extra attention and can probably help the patient down the road when it comes to just being able to catch things a little bit earlier, or being able to get treatment, and maybe even being able to have a little bit of extra time with the provider versus what they can get in a traditional healthcare setting.
Yeah, I hear stories over and over again about the special role that the pharmacy plays in the community. One of our customers hosts a drive-in movie and ice cream evening a couple times a year for his community, and people come out and do that. And we actually had a pharmacist on a few weeks back, Summer Curley, and she was telling a story about how she was vaccinating someone, and they started sharing a little bit more about what's going on with them, and she helped them navigate to care that was really important right at that time. And so a lot of it is kind of meeting the patient where they are and being at the right place at the right time, right? Like you're the care provider that's there when it can be hard to navigate the traditional healthcare setting. And for these kinds of low acuity things, I just think it can be so key for the communities in which the pharmacies are serving those members of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about that. And so, to me, like this needs to be something that we do ASAP. I just think that you're going to see better healthcare outcomes if pharmacists are able to do these things. And it's not like they're practicing medicine; they're just helping people with really some basics and things that already fall under the purview of their training.
Yeah. So this legislation, this ECAPS legislation, has been introduced in Congress 3 different times. I'm curious, do you have any thoughts for yourself, or are there any ways that you've seen the legislation evolve over those 3 sessions? And I would say it is an incredibly and impressively bipartisan piece of legislation today. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on, third time? What does that mean?
Well, first, I like to remind people that, it takes a while to move things through Congress. It's rare that something is filed and then it's passed, the first year. Usually it takes many, many years. You'll hear people that are longtime Hill veterans that have worked in and around the Capitol talk about how sometimes it may take them 10 years or longer to finally be able to get legislation enacted and passed. Different hands will have touched the legislation. So that's just really not that unusual for that to happen. I would also say that you learn different things along the way about what it looks like to be able to bring in other people and broaden the universe of supporters for different pieces of legislation. And I think that as this bill has evolved, that you have seen more and more people from a bipartisan standpoint, want to be a part of this because, again, it's something that touches all communities. Everyone knows their pharmacists. I serve on Energy and Commerce with a Republican member that is a pharmacist. And so, I think everybody sort of gets why this is important. And as time
Yeah.
has gone on, more and more people, more and more members of Congress understand that.
Yeah. Have you heard any stories from your peers about what they're thinking about it, or has that pharmacist kind of spoken up at all about the legislation, or any indications you're hearing there? Any stories?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of pharmacists. And again, I when I was in the state legislature, even I served with pharmacists. But as it relates to this particular bill, I think that people see it as a cost savings measure. And I think that's one of the
Mm.
reasons why it's grown in popularity, is Democrats and Republicans see this as an opportunity to actually save the system more money. If people
Yeah.
can have a lot of these, very minor, maladies looked at by the pharmacist, and they're able to establish that patient, provider relationship, then I think that people understand that that's a win-win for the system. And in the long run, that saves taxpayers and the healthcare system itself a lot of money. And so
Yeah.
that I think that makes it easier to get people on board. And so that's why people understand the importance of it. And I think that pharmacists have done a really good job of also doing a lot of outreach to their members of Congress in their respective districts to let us know why it's important.
Yeah. Are you seeing any signals, or what next with the legislation? Any indications of how it's going to progress, or what needs to happen? A little bit of education for our viewers and listeners. What needs to happen for this to be brought to the floor, or anything you're seeing this time that you maybe didn't see the last couple times?
Yeah, we've had some hiccups. I know that everyone has seen the news and saw that we had the government shut down, and we weren't in, for 7 weeks. And so what ends up happening in Washington D.C. is that the legislative calendar begins to shrink. You probably saw the 2026 calendar, for instance. Like we're not only are we not in August, but we're not in the entire month of October either. And so when you start actually counting up those legislative days, you realize that, hey, we don't really have a lot of time to get these things accomplished before the new Congress starts January 3rd, 2027. People from the outside, it looks like we're in DC all the time. But if you
Hmm.
really stop to think about it, we'll every month there's at least one recess week, one recess period. August we're off this because it's an election year. All of 2026 will be off, and so really we're fighting the clock. There's only
Mm.
so much time on the calendar to get major pieces of legislation through. And that's going to be our big challenge. I do think that because we're in the season of saving, and there's some concerns about some of the legislation that have passed and how that can actually end up being more costly to patients. I do think that an idea like ECAPS is going to be something that people may want to help push through the system faster because we're expecting some huge changes as it relates to coverage moving into 2026.
Yeah. So what can folks do to help push it forward? What can our listeners or just people in the industry do to help you fight the clock, as you mentioned?
Yeah, just keep talking about it. I mean, the providers that are out there talking to their members of Congress, talking to their senators about the importance of this, really can't do that enough. We need for people to, go online. We need for people to do Hill visits when they have the chance to let their members of Congress know, hey, this is a great thing that is going to save money, is going to be better for the patient, is going to produce better outcomes. And it's just, again, just a win-win for everyone. And so I would say outreach to members of Congress on the importance of this is the biggest thing that we can do in order to help get this over the finish line, because we don't want to start all over in January 3rd, 2027 when the new Congress is sworn in. It's better to try and get this done now.
Yeah. Is there anything that you see in terms of the strength of the bipartisanship? We talked about it a little bit, but how rare is that in a legislation like this that's being considered?
It's very rare, especially on healthcare related issues. As you know, there's a pretty big gap in how Republicans and Democrats see how we should be moving forward when it comes to healthcare related legislation. And so, it's no surprise there. And so if we have something like ECAPS where we can put together a win and do it, where it has this much bipartisan support, there's no reason why we shouldn't be trying to get this over the finish line now. Again, we don't have that many legislative days remaining, but I do think that we can get something done if we make enough noise on this thing, because it's good. But I'm telling you, it is anything healthcare related gets probably extra scrutiny just because the issue over the years has become very, very partisan.
Yeah, well, it seems like the sun is shining down on this one from a bipartisan perspective. So let's make some hay while the sun shines, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We need to.
It's been great talking with you. Are there any last stories you want to share about anything you're hearing from your constituents, or anything related to healthcare access in your communities, or just any narratives about your passion around the area?
Yeah, I would just say that, people out there are so worried right now as it relates to healthcare. As you know, there are a lot of different changes. The healthcare has really been in the center of the news, and I believe that this legislation could actually help ease some of that anxiety and help the American public see, regardless of who they may have voted for or how they identify politically, that when it comes to working together on common sense solution, that Democrats and Republicans can actually get something like ECAPS passed. I think that it would be encouraging to people because it's just common sense. And I think that if people could see that members of Congress could put aside their differences and work on getting a piece of legislation like this through the system, I think that it would give them confidence and make them feel better about the future of healthcare and about the government and Congress being able to be, good stewards of healthcare legislation and policy as it relates to different people's families as we move forward. And so, I say let's move full steam ahead on this. Let's keep this going because America is ready for this. They are ready for ECAPS, and they're ready to see something again that's just positive, that's common sense, that will help produce better healthcare outcomes for themselves and their families. And it's something that's just long overdue. So let's get it done.
I love it. That is a great note to end on. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for joining Representative Veasey, and I'll invite all of our viewers and listeners to join us again for the next episode of the ECAPS Watch Podcast.
Thank you. Good to be with y'all.